Okay, welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Charlie Taylor. I'm a CE consultant here at the Department for Libraries and Archives, and I'll be facilitating the webinar and assisting with any technical issues that might come up. So if you have any technical issues, sorry about that last minute thing, please use the chat for that. Also, if you have any questions for our presenter today, please use the chat. And if you haven't found the chat yet, there is a purple arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you click that arrow, it will expand a white panel on the right-hand side of the screen. And then you'll see a chat bubble at the bottom. And that's where you'll chat in and say hello, so you can see that. All right, so please feel free to use the chat and ask questions as they come. There are slides available for today's webinar, and those are in the Blackboard Learn classroom, and you should be able to go ahead and get those. Probably until tomorrow they'll be available once I close the course. And the webinar is being recorded, and it will be available within a week in our online learning portal. You can go back and review it or share it with anybody that you think might be interested in the content. And then lastly, you might have gotten a notification at the top of the screen about captioning. You can view closed captions for this webinar, live captions, by watching them. You can click yes on that notification and watch them on the screen, or you can use this stream text link that I just popped into the chat there, and that will just open the captions in a separate tab. Some people prefer that if you like captioning. So I think that's all I have. Wesley, I'll mute myself and turn it over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Charlie. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. As the slide points out here, my name is Wesley Johnson, and I'm from the Daviess County Public Library. And before I get too far into this, I just want to make sure I'm not too loud or too quiet. I'm using a Shure microphone through audio interface that has like a bunch of different volume knobs on it. So if I need to tweak one of those, let me know in the chat. And I will be watching the chat. I'm very informal when I speak, and I would be happy to answer questions at the end and as we go along. So if somebody does have a pressing question, drop it in there, and as soon as I see it, I'll address it, either that or right at the end. So awesome. Okay, I see a couple thumbs up for the audio. Awesome. Okay, I have given a version of this presentation at KPLA before. This one is updated, so if you have seen it before, don't worry, there will be some new information. And yeah, so fostering a film community, that's the topic at hand. This is going to be about a program series we do called Unscripted and Indie Film Experience. Some of you may have heard about that. This is what gave us the movie Volumes of Blood, which is a horror film that we shot entirely at the library. There were a couple of pieces done elsewhere in town, but for the most part, after hours at the library for a series of about maybe 5-6 months. We had a group of filmmakers, a group of patrons come in, and they put together a horror anthology. It is a very bloody movie. The board did sign off on the script, so nothing too bad in it. But if horror kind of turns your stomach a little bit, I definitely wouldn't suggest watching it, but you can find it on Amazon Prime. It got a video release, so there are copies of it out there if you're interested. Okay, so let's start with PJ Starks. He is a local filmmaker who's been working in Owensboro for quite a while. He's done film festivals here. He's done movies here. I think Volumes of Blood may have been like the 4th movie that he was affiliated with, but for years now, he's been doing a lot of cool indie film stuff in town. And you would be so surprised, and I definitely was, at all the filmmaking that's happening around the state of Kentucky. We don't just show people in this from Owensboro. We show all over the state. I've had people come from Eastern Kentucky to show stuff, people from Tennessee and Indiana too, and rural communities that you wouldn't necessarily think about this happening in. So it's great. And all these filmmakers need a place to show off their stuff, meet other filmmakers from other parts of the state, find new people to work with, and that's sort of what this event became. So PJ had the idea for Unscripted, and I'll tell you the idea now. It's a very simple premise. It's not a traditional film festival. Each night of Unscripted, we show 1 to 2 short films. We stick to 30 minutes or less. We have shown features, just like a 30-minute chunk of a feature. The reason we stick to 30 minutes or less is because we show each of them twice. The filmmakers, the cast, the crew, they'll all come, not entirely, but a good portion of them will come in. The first time we show the movie, it's free from accompaniment. But then the second time we show it, it's the filmmakers, the cast, the crew, they all do a live commentary, and it's interactive. It's a Q&A and a commentary sort of wrapped into one. So we just crank the volume down on the movie and let them talk over the top of it. And what we found with this is that it's super inspirational. You know, patrons come in just wanting to see what the local filmmakers are doing, and they meet them, they talk to them afterwards, and some of them get involved themselves. And it's just really, really great. But PJ had the idea. He brought it to Jim Blanton, who was our director at the time. When I first got here, Jim and I bonded over cult movies. We love B movies. We love The Room. We love all this silliness. You know, Neil Breen. If any of those names mean anything to you, you'll know what I'm talking about. The two of us and my immediate boss, Brian Lashbrook, we all love this stuff. We geeked out about it. When PJ brought this idea to Jim, who was such a movie buff, he immediately said, yes, let's do it. Let's make it work. For the first few years, PJ would network with his filmmaking friends, and he would put together the series. And eventually he turned that over to me because he wanted to get back to mostly making movies, but he still did work with us. And you'll find out more about the things he did with us later on in the presentation. So the first night of Unscripted, well, actually, let me show you a few of these pictures before I get into that. And I think, I'm not sure, the animation may not be playing through the way this was shared, but these are just a few pictures from Unscripted. And unless I think maybe I did something wrong in the presentation. They were supposed to float in over each other. The filmmaker and the.
I was just going to say the animation won't work in here. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Well, trying to figure out the best way to explain this then. So the guy in front there, that's just one of the filmmakers, and that's how the screening room looks. We just have a microphone. We turn the sound down and let him talk over the top of it. And behind there, that's kind of a better look at our screening room, which I wish I had some better pictures to show you.
I'll tell you what, Wesley, I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you mentioned you have your PowerPoint slides available,
yeah. Can we
let's
go?
just do that. Let's have
Okay,
you
great.
screen share, and that way that'll work. Click on down there where that chat bubble is to the right. There's a box with an arrow in it, and
hang on one second. Let me get back to it because I went too early too. So, okay, what I'm looking for now?
It's just to the right of the chat bubble. There's a box it's a box with an arrow, and it's the share
okay,
content.
I see it.
Go up to share applications /screen, and then you should be able to click choose the window that you want to share.
Yeah, I got it. Cool.
And it'll just take a second to come up.
Let me know when everybody can see that.
All right. Yes, we see that.
Okay, there's PJ. Okay, so this is the first logo that we came up with. And I was just going to say, PJ did a lot of the graphics for this starting out. He brought us so much stuff. We do have on staff graphic designers. We have marketing people. My boss, my IT manager, was an art major at UK, so he designed a lot of stuff. And he did help with laying out flyers and stuff. But PJ, you know, everybody who does anything like this needs to have someone who knows the filmmaking world, be that somebody on staff or a local person to partner with. And PJ just was a wealth of stuff like this. And he's a shameless promoter. So he would go to newspapers, he would go to video stores, any kind of movie related business he would go to and just be an evangelist essentially for what we were doing. So here is our screening room, and as you can see, it's modestly sized. Those chairs are very uncomfortable, so I would never wanted to show movies that were very long, even if the format would allow us to. We do have better chairs now, thankfully, but those are like wooden, very hard chairs. So important part of doing something like this, have good chairs. There's a better look at our screening room. That was a pretty packed night. And early on, you know, for the first few years, we were very, very packed. And we do have an identical room like this on the other side. One of the first things Jim did whenever he got hired by our library is to set up screening rooms since he was such a movie fan. So we had a perfect area for this stuff to happen in. When we did get some overcrowded nights, and if we did something like a zombie night, when we showed some horror movies, we'd have like costume contests and stuff like that. We would have to open up both rooms, and then we'd do a conference call for the commentary. We did formally do a Q&A between the films, but it got a little too repetitive, so I just cut it down to just the one screening and then the second screening with the commentary. And here's a commentary in action like I was discussing earlier. So this is just an A-Team reference. I couldn't resist putting that in there. Right after PJ brought this idea to the library, him and Jim began collaborating on a plan to make it all come together. And like I said, PJ offered us just a wealth of connections, a wealth of promotion. We really didn't have to do that much at all except provide the room when we first started this. But I got so addicted. This was one of the first programs I got involved with after I got hired at DCPL, which was in 2013. That was the first year we did Unscripted. So PJ's out there forming all these partnerships. We're doing our thing. And then, more and more we became like a bigger part of it up until the point that PJ turned the keys over to me for organization. Marketing is important like this. This is such a unique program, and a lot of you guys out there probably haven't showed indie movies. It's very important to know your audience and where your audience goes. That's true of any event, really. So movie-related businesses were a big help with us. Like I said, PJ would go to like Family Video, and they would put us up on their marquee. I don't know how many video rental places are still out there. Can't really put flyers up on Redbox. I'm sure the Redbox fairies that I always joke that they're magical creatures that replace the movies inside of Redboxes just because you never really see them out. It's almost like a rare Pokemon or something. I'm sure putting something up there probably wouldn't be a good idea, but any kind of sort of comic book shop or anywhere where like hardcore movie people go to, putting a flyer up, and an eye-catching flyer at that is very important. Local media really embraced this because they love PJ and they love the idea of like doing something different like this. There were regularly articles in the paper. I actually, once I took over the event, started having an article in the paper every week where they profiled the movies showing up or coming up, and they interviewed the filmmakers, and it was like good for the filmmaker because it's press that they're not accustomed to getting just because they're so new in the arena of film, and it's good for us. The audience for the paper is someone that you might not necessarily think about like coming out to see indie movies, but we did get a lot of people that we wouldn't have expected. And I know during the first season, we actually showed an Owensboro themed documentary, and the audience that came to that was a lot different, due in part to being in the newspaper. So just don't be afraid of using media that you wouldn't think of as a movie buff sort of thing, because you'll attract new people to it and they'll be interested. Flyers, of course. One of the flyers I'll show you later, which I know Charlie was a big fan of, I had a comic book artist based in Kentucky. His name's Chris Schweitzer. He's an amazing dude. He lives in Madisonville, Kentucky. He's written for some really big comics. He works a lot with Kyle Starks, who does the Rick and Morty comics. He did the Pirates of the Caribbean comic, the official one. Krogan Adventures is a really well-known one he did. He does some really great stuff, and I'll have him do flyers for me occasionally. And for the last Unscripted, which was last August, I had him do one that kind of looked like a B movie poster, and it's really great. You'll see that toward the end of it. Facebook, of course, but it's reliable sometimes. I know everybody gets upset about the boosting thing, which I'm very upset about it too. They make it very difficult for people to see things that follow you unless you pay money. I've been able to spend like $5 on a boost campaign, and it makes a big difference. It's surprising how little money you have to put into it. On principle, I don't like it, but at the same time, we have a marketing budget for a reason, and we can use some of that for Facebook clicks. And you can tailor your audience. I always like say, okay, film buffs who live in this part of the town or this state, we're right on the border of Indiana, so we get people from Evansville coming down. We work with the filmmaker group over in Evansville from time to time, and they've been a big supply of films for us. So yeah, it's a tailored Facebook campaign that's boosted $5-10. You can really get some people to it. And we use all this stuff early on, and we continue to use it to this day. And word of mouth, of course. People who love movies are going to talk about this. People who want to get involved will talk about this. People who never thought they'd be involved with the film will get involved with this. They get excited about it, and they talk about it to a lot of people. So, these strategies don't just work for Unscripted. They work for anybody or anything. Okay, here's the Family Video marquee, which rest in peace, Family Video. I don't know how many of those still exist, but for the second year of Unscripted, they were very kind to do this and let us put flyers. And they actually, this is great, and this is something I want us to do at our library. They had an Unscripted section where filmmakers who participated could burn a copy of their movie, or if they had an actual release of it, drop it off there, and they would rent the movies out to people. So it gave us extra exposure. People would walk in when people went to video stores and would see the Unscripted logo and say, hey, these movies are going to be featured. And, I really want to get some of these movies into the library. It's really hard with a burned DVD to do, but I've been kind of advocating for something like that, for some extra publicity. That way people would see the Unscripted name even when we're not in the middle of a program. And the zombie nights, that was a big deal for us. And I'll talk about those in a little bit. Okay, another big partner of ours, and this was all PJ, is Malco Theaters. That's our local theater. They just opened up a great new theater, replaced the older one that was kind of at the end of life. So they give us, for every installment of Unscripted, which right now we do just for 4 weeks in August, they give us a bag of this popcorn. And movie theater popcorn's not cheap, so they give us this. We get individual bags, and we bag the popcorn ourselves. We have free soft drinks, and that's kind of a big part of the program. And one thing I don't have a slide of, I don't think, is the movie posters that we got. Family Video gave us a whole lot of movie posters, and they're still in the corner of my office from like the first year. That's how many we got. They're not the best movies. So at the end of the nights, we'll have a bad movie poster giveaway, and people love this. Everybody gets a ticket when they come in. Then we draw at the end for 2 or 3, and people will have to present their movie poster to the group for kind of scorn or praise, depending on how good the movie is. I currently am looking at a Taylor Lautner Abduction poster that I have up in my office just because I love that cheesy movie. So people really get into that. People just love bad movies. And but yeah, if you do something like this, don't be afraid to ask your local theater, because it's good synergy, as they say. They've let us put up flyers. One thing I would love to do, and this is another suggestion that I haven't acted upon yet, is to advertise in front of the movies. Like, it doesn't cost as much as you think it would to get commercials in front of a movie. So if you got to think, you do a trailer and make a fake trailer for the event you're about to have, and right before the movie theaters or the movies actually start, or the movie trailers start, and it will just kind of blend in, and it'll stick in people's minds. This is just a banner. This is actually the first Unscripted that we did. And as you can see, there was a couple of sponsors down there, 97X, which is a local radio station. They'll let us come on and plug stuff. The logo at the far end is PJ's production company that no longer exists. He has a different one now. Family Video was a sponsor. We do still have a movie rental place, and I do try to work with them. It's a great place called Star Trek's Video. It's VHS tapes and everything. They're very retro, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll get flyers out there too when I can. But yeah, this was our first lineup. Originally, we did 6 weeks. That got to be way too hard to manage. So once I took it over, I'm lazy, I guess, and I took it down to 4 weeks. It was a lot easier to find films that way. That was a big problem early on. We did 6 weeks twice a year. So I would have to repeat show stuff, and I would just run out of movies way too quickly. A lot of people do this, but it just takes some time because this is not their day job. So it's good to pace yourself and not try to do too much at once. And if anybody does have a chat, now that I'm showing this off my PowerPoint, I can't see the chat. So if anybody has a question, Charlie, that you notice, let me know. Okay, this was our first night, January 11th, 2013. And we showed a film called Bumsicle. You can't really tell because it's so dark, but the room was full. We held about 55, 60 in that room comfortably, probably more like 55. And like I said, we do have the other side we can open up if we need it. That's a big problem we have with this program right now, is space. We don't get the crowds like we used to. People still are interested. Last year was the first year we had done it in a couple years. But one of these days, I would like to have a better space to show it in. We have surround sound in this room. We have a digital projector up. Screen's not great, but it's good enough. And people are more there to learn and to socialize and see what people are doing than worrying about THX sound or whatever. But yeah, Bumsicle, I will talk about this for a minute, just to show you how like community partnerships and making a good impression, how important that is. Bumsicle was directed by a man named Lee Goldberg. If you're a mystery fan, the name Lee Goldberg might sound familiar to you. He is from California, and he has written for lots of TV shows. He wrote for Diagnosis Murder. He wrote for Monk, for Psych, a lot of old mysteries like Spencer for Hire and stuff like that. Some of the stuff I grew up on. At one point, Owensboro hosted an event the International Mystery Writers Festival, Discovering New Mysteries, and they had the Agatha Awards, which were like mystery awards, and they were pretty prestigious. That was done at the River Park Center in downtown Owensboro for about 3 years, I think. Unfortunately, they stopped doing the event. I think the cost got a little too high for them. But Lee Goldberg came to this event. Harry Anderson came to this event from Night Court. There were a lot of people, a lot of great authors came through. Lee just fell in love with Owensboro. There's a picture, and I wish I had included it, of him presenting at the Agatha Awards with a Moonlight Barbecue apron on that was like stained with barbecue sauce, and I think he might have had some wings there with him. Lee has been back several times since then to do events at the library. Him and PJ befriended each other through the River Park Center, and he ended up coming to direct movies. This Bumsicle is based on one of his stories, and there's a character there. The guy you see on the screen there is portrayed by Todd Reynolds, who's the president of the Theater Workshop at Owensboro. That's our very great community theater that we have here in town. And all these people met, kind of networked, and Lee has came, I think, twice and done 2 short films here, maybe 3 times. There might be one I'm forgetting about. The movie was very well received, though. People really, really liked it, and that was a great way to start the program with such a big short film. And just these are just a few pictures from subsequent installments. I don't know if these are all first year, but as you can see, we had our first baby attend there on the far left. And people were just enthralled by this. You can tell from their faces, they're just absorbing everything they could. Once I took over the festival, like PJ kind of like slanted toward horror films, and those are great. A lot of local filmmakers you'll find do horror films. It's the shock factor is real easy to get into, but you'll find mysteries. You'll find Quentin Tarantino sort of criminal movies. You'll find documentaries. Like I said, the first season we showed a documentary of Owensboro, but I found the longer I've done this, the more diverse things. I've shown a couple of Westerns. There is a place called Copper Canyon Ranch in Hopkinsville, and they have provided a backdrop for country music videos and for short films too. It is essentially a fully functioning old Western town, and they have outfits, they have period appropriate guns and things like that. So a lot of filmmakers will hit that guy up, and he's very kind to indie filmmakers. I think Florida Georgia Line shot a video there, some country groups. But if you're an indie filmmaker without a budget, he will let you shoot there for a pretty reasonable sum, if not for free. I don't know exactly to quote your price, but I just wanted you to kind of get a hint of the diversity and kind of the amazing things people have done with hardly any money involved. This was just to show you how diverse things can get. This was one of my favorite nights that I put together after taking over the series. The far left poster there, there's a band, like a hardcore band in Louisville called Belushi Speedball, and that's because Jim Belushi enjoyed the game Sonic Speedball. They're big video game nerds. But this video was a long form Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sort of take called You Can't Rock Steady Without Bebop. And they start out, they found some ooze, and they end up drinking the ooze for some reason, and then they turn into the creatures from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Bo Kalen, the guy who directed this, is a visionary. He has a garage set up, and he makes all these practical effects. Puts a lot of effort into this stuff. He is a teacher in Louisville too, and he worked at a movie theater. So he just make great practical effects, and his band, he's a part of this band too. They're very theatrical, but again, it's just these great costumes. It looks kind of like Tim and Eric Adult Swim sort of stuff, just about a 10-minute music video or something like that. The one in the middle, Silent Era Batman, it was made by a comedian in Louisville. It was straight up like an old school silent film, but it was Batman. And you see stuff like this pop up on TikTok now. This was made years ago, and nobody really was doing this stuff anymore. Or at that point. And the far right one was Dungeons and Dating, which, as you can probably tell from the title, was a romantic comedy centered around the world of Dungeons and Dragons, made by Gavin Eddings, who's a guy over in Evansville. And if you guys listen to local radio on the side of the state, you probably have heard of Gavin Eddings. He was on the Claire in the Morning show on 96 STO. He's a really funny guy. His movie was great. And so, yeah, there's 2 Louisvilles and an Evansville. So we don't always show from right in Owensboro. We try to, be kind to the entire state of Kentucky. If you're willing to drive, we'll definitely show you. And I will say too, we have FaceTimed with a few people outside of the state, and are set up for doing remote visits. is kind of janky. We seriously just have a MacBook that we turn towards the screen, and then we mic the speaker off the MacBook. So the filmmaker is literally watching the film through a webcam and keeping up with the commentary, talking over his handheld mic or whatever he happens to have. And it works. It's a surprise. I was very surprised at how well that worked. I'm sure there's probably a better solution, some software, like some shared viewing software or something that we could probably use. But hey, if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Okay, this is another just general shot from the crowd. We have talking about local partnerships, a guy named Mike Hall, who's a photographer. He's a storm chaser. He does storm photography. He knew PJ, and PJ got him involved. So a lot of these great pictures you're seeing were taken by him. Excuse me, just had to take a drink there, getting a little parched. Okay, zombie night, which I mentioned. Theme nights are big with this sort of thing. So I highly suggest figuring stuff out like this if you do happen to do a film series of your own. This was a graphic designed by PJ, I believe. Not sure where the picture came from. I do know one of the first things I did film-wise, because I've been in a few things myself after I got to Owensboro. I moved here in 2013, as mentioned, was a WBKR Zombie Run promo in which I got dragged over a bench and people actually sort of bit me. I didn't know that was going to happen when I agreed to be in the film, but I think that picture came from that. So PJ typically tries to use stuff from his own productions, just so you don't want to use something somebody else did. But as you can see, there's a zombie costume contest with grand prizes. PJ, like I said, is pretty shameless as far as promotion goes. He would hit up people he knew that were filmmakers, and he would just kind of cold email people that he didn't necessarily know and say, hey, I'm doing this at the library, ... As you all know, with other things that you've done, people are very kind to libraries. So if you email a comic creator, say, hey, I'm doing a comic giveaway. Do you have anything you'd like to share with us? Most of the time, they're not going to charge you. So PJ got a lot of great things donated for the giveaways. The film we showed that night, Nearly Dead, was out of Louisville. It's a zombie film set in a rest home. It's hilarious. Filmmaker showed up that night. We didn't have to do a remote with him. So I highly suggest looking up Nearly Dead. If you're not afraid of gore, definitely, it's definitely funny. And the title is a pun, so This picture I absolutely love, and this shows you just how kind of what we built with Unscripted and how it got people involved. So this was the costumes from the Nearly Dead costume contest. It's black and white, so you can't tell so much about some of them. The guy on the far right with his hand kind of on PJ there, you can see his wedding band. PJ looks terrified of. His name is Eric, and him and PJ are now production partners, and they are working on a feature film that has a lot of attention. It's got some people from, I'm trying to think, Final Destination. I think some people were involved in, some of the actors and different folks like that. Nobody super huge, but enough to be impressive for just kind of a local production. The guy next to Eric is a musician who played that night. We did start after the first year of Unscripted having music occasionally, but it got to be too hard to match the musician with the film. I didn't want to have acoustic country with a horror movie. So I ended up taking that down to just doing music when it kind of made sense with the movie, like if somebody was on the film soundtrack or whatever. So the guy in the middle, that's John, who made Nearly Dead. The person above him to the right was involved with Volumes of Blood, which is the movie we did at the library, and she's done a few things herself. And then, I'm sorry. The person above his right shoulder. This is probably the biggest Unscripted success story. Her name is Lisa. She was a registered nurse in Owensboro. Her and her son started coming to these programs, and she got involved with some of the stuff we were doing. She worked on Volumes of Blood. She would just do these crazy effects. You can't really tell how good her costume is, and I'm kind of glad this is in black and white because there's a lot of blood on it, and I don't want to offend anybody, but she made these elaborate costumes every year that her and her son came, and then she started figuring out effects at home, kind of like Bo did, just building stuff in her garage or whatever. She went on to start working in indie movies outside of Owensboro, and there's a person who is from Ohio County, which is just right outside of Owensboro, who actually works in Hollywood on some bigger horror films now, and they were looking for someone to work on the latest Halloween movie as a makeup assistant. Lisa got that job, so she's actually working on big Hollywood productions, and she started at the Daviess County Public Library, coming Unscripted and working on the film that we did here. And then the lady in the white, kind of the lady in the white, I say with the black and white photo, the lady that's kind of two over from her with the lighter hair, she was in Volumes of Blood just as a patron, coming to these events and then getting involved with film. So it's really great to see, all these people start out with us and do bigger things and cooler things. So yeah, it's just kind of neat how that sort of stuff happens. Here's Lisa and her son again. I forgot that I included this. So this is a better look at her costume. And yeah, this is just stuff. All these costumes are just things that these people put together at their home. And they got a couple free t-shirts out of that. I think they got a few other things that night. I believe it's been a while, but I think they won the grand prize. Okay, and I will say this is a revamped version of the presentation. I toyed with whether or not I should remove this photo after the whole slap thing. So I just like the keeping things fresh pun. But so after the first year of Unscripted, I referenced this earlier. We met with PJ. It was my boss, Alicia Harrington, who used to work here, Jim, our director, and myself. We're just kind of tossing around ideas on things to add. We really wanted to kind of go bigger with the second year, and we added music. I don't think we had any music the first year, and like I said, it got a little awkward sometimes because I remember asking a guy who kind of did folksy sort of hippie type music, and he played with a horror film. It's like there were a lot of mismatches there. Not to say that the music scene's not diverse around here, but I wanted to put more thought into making kind of a cohesive evening. But that was one of the things we discussed here, having music, and we did, like I say, pretty regularly have that. We discussed local art. Wanted to put Bob Ross in there because I like him. PJ wanted to have like artists outside the room kind of displaying their art and things like that. And that's the idea I wasn't really fully behind. As much as I love our local art community, I just felt like this should be about film. I didn't want to stretch this too thin. So that's another thing I would suggest. It's a lot to juggle, keeping the movies going, keeping the filmmakers from not talking too long. You don't want people to get out at the end of the night. Showing a movie twice, especially if the movie's 30 minutes, I almost want to like cut it back to 20 because a double viewing of a 30-minute movie sometimes can seem too long. But I just didn't want to like have to go all over the place. So I wanted to keep it film first. And for artists, we have an art event too. We have an arts fair that we have. So I'd rather kind of keep those segmented. This is a shot from a band. Well, he's in a band. This is just a solo performance from a guy in a band named Thunder Dreamer. They are from Evansville across the bridge. We really, like I say, work a lot with Evansville people. We're practically like a suburb of Evansville since we're just kind of over the bridge a little bit. And he's in a very a good indie rock band, and they've kind of blown up on Spotify. They got signed to the label. So we've had him play a few times. It's always good to have him stop by. Okay, so I have this slide too early. So I'll stop and talk about the Unscripted Film School, which is probably one thing you guys have heard of and are more interested in hearing about. So one of the things in this meeting we talked about, and Jim, our director, came up with the idea was, how about we make movies at the library? How about we do that? We add a film school, and that way patrons who are interested in getting further involved with film could team with people who have made a few films and put together something just exclusively at DCPL. So I kind of got the slide out of order, but I will give you like a shortened version of this. So long story short, the first Unscripted Film School happened in 2014. We made 2 shorts. First, we put out a call for 10-page screenplays. As the rule goes, filmmakers will tell you 1 page of a script equals 1 minute of film. So we wanted a couple of bite-sized short films that would be easy to manage to shoot in one night. And then we were going to premiere those at a special night of Unscripted and have like an audience award. So, by applause or whatever, we would vote for the winner. They would get a certificate, whatever you can do with that. And these were the people behind Lucky, which is one of the 2 shorts that got the most attention. And they won the audience award that night. So that slide should have been after this, which this is a few photos from the Unscripted Film School. First year, we did the 2 shorts. Second year, we wanted to go even bigger, and that is where Volumes of Blood came from. This was the first short we did, and that one's called Mistrust. It was good too, but Lucky just for some reason the internet press really embraced it. It was a little more effects driven, and that's from Lucky over there on the side. The girl that you see there in the photo, her name is Luisa Torres, and she's another person that kind of started with us. She was doing like theater acting. And Greg Sestero, some of you guys may know that name. He was in a movie that's thought of as the worst movie of all time. It was called The Room. It's a hilarious movie, not to be confused with The Room, the Oscar winner. The Room is a really, really great, like weird B movie that a lot of celebrities love. And the making of that movie was inspired. It inspired the film The Disaster Artist. Greg, who was in the movie, wrote a book about his friendship with the director, who was a very strange man, and making the movie. And the story was so wild that James Franco and Seth Rogen turned that into a movie, and that's The Disaster Artist. So Louisa came to one of our events with Greg. We've had Greg come in multiple times to show different movies he's made. He's a great dude, very wonderful to work with. And she and him got to be friends, and he just made a movie that's actually a really, really good movie. It's not good for being bad. It's a really, really good movie. And she was one of the lead actresses in it. She actually read a part for him. At his event, sometimes he'll do live readings from The Room script. And it's just kind of a silly thing the audience does, but Louisa took it seriously. She did a great reading, and Greg was always impressed by her. He met her like back in 2013, and yeah, his movie that just came out last year, she was a lead actress in. So she's working now with, she did some stuff with the Tyler Perry studio, so she's down in Atlanta now, kind of making it happen. But as I mentioned, these two right here kind of led to us doing Volumes of Blood. Now, Charlie, we can play that clip now. Do I need to stop sharing for you to be able to do that?
Sorry, it took me a second.
Oh, no,
I think
that's
I
fine.
can
I was
just
about to
take
say,
it
did I
from
lose
you.
it?
I
Okay.
think I can just take it. I don't think you have to do anything.
Right. So we're going to watch a video right now that's kind of a behind the scenes, a little bit of some of these filmmaking things we do in this library. We got a couple of clips. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that first one.
My name is Joe Atkinson. I am the director of Mistrust, which is one of the two shorts that has, or one of the two short scripts that was chosen to be a part of this particular project. You know, PJ and I have become friends over the years and talked about doing a lot of different projects. And he called me up one day and just basically said, you know, we're doing this thing and we're looking for people to kind of be the team leaders for these two projects. And I was looking at having you and Jake Valinsky do it. And Jake is, of course, one of my best friends. And somebody who I've collaborated with on 2 or 3 different projects now. So I love working with Jake, and the idea of coming in here with him being the other guy making a film, doing this thing that, you know, really just giving an opportunity for a lot of people who either A, have not written a film that's been produced before, or B, haven't gotten the opportunity to work on a lot of these types of projects before. You know, I like seeing the way that PJ and this project are really opening the door to some new people, opening the door to some new projects that might not otherwise get produced, and that seemed like an exciting thing to be a part of. We've got a great crew. Everybody's working hard. Our actors are doing a terrific job. You know, we have 8 hours to shoot a 7-page script or something like that, and we're about on pace. And I'm working with a crew of people who largely I've never worked with before, so I really didn't know coming in. You know, I had some ideas and some things that I wanted to do. I had no idea if we were actually going to be able to do it or not, because I hadn't worked with this crew. And so far, everything that I've asked them to do, they've nailed. So it's really been very, I won't say a pleasant surprise, but it's been very pleasant. It's been very nice to be able to come in and say, man, I hope we can pull off this shot. I hope we can pull off this shot. And then we do the shot, and I go, oh, yeah, we got it.
There is a much longer version of that. I think it's about 6 or 7 minutes, so not a whole lot longer, that you can find on the Daviess County Public Library, the YouTube account that we have. So if you just kind of search for, if you kind of search YouTube for just behind the scenes unscripted film school or something like that, you'll be able to get it. Okay, Charlie, I'm looking now and I don't see. I didn't shut down my presentation. Oh wait, okay. For some reason, when I have it minimized, I can't share like the window for my PowerPoint goes away when I minimize it in the share screen there. But right now, I'm just seeing my web browser, and as soon as I open it up, it goes away.
Huh. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I didn't have that earlier. I was able to get it with just it open. Oh wait, maybe I need to make the slideshow. Let
I
me
was gonna
bring the
say you
slideshow
probably
up.
need to start the share again.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I just had to start the slideshow part again, not just have it up in PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, like I said, you can find a longer version of that in the next clip that we're going to show, and there are quite a bit of things on YouTube about this. The Volumes of Blood trailer. You can actually find the movies Lucky and Mistrust at various spots online, and that was just Joe. He did Mistrust, and I like to give him a little more love since Lucky kind of was the one that the press glommed onto. They're both very good. Okay, so yeah, Lucky, as I mentioned, got a lot of press. So this was off Ain't It Cool News, which is a website some of you guys may have heard of. It was very big back in the day. You don't hear a lot about it these days, but it was kind of huge to get a mention on there for something that was, shot at the library in one night. And you did hear him correctly. These were done in one night. The editing and stuff took a little bit longer than that, but still, it was just impressive what they were able to pull off. Here's just a little bit more. Canada Horror Movie somehow got word of Lucky. I don't remember what site this came from, but a lot of these horror blogs, some you might not have heard of, some you might have, really got attached to this. And it was this attention that inspired them to go bigger with the second Unscripted Film School. And that's how you got Volumes of Blood. This poster is amazing. It was done by another Kentucky artist. I mentioned one earlier, guy out of Louisville named Nathan Thomas Milner. He's also a filmmaker. I don't think he did a whole lot of films before him and PJ met. I think he'd done maybe one or two. He showed at a festival that PJ did in Owensboro, and they stayed friends. Nathan draws a lot of stuff for movie covers. He works with Horror Hound magazine, and a lot of the Scream team, which is the Shout Factory re-releases of classic horror movies. You might recognize the style if you follow that stuff because he draws a lot of those boxes himself. And that was a great poster. That mask you see there, the devil mask, plays into one of the movies, and it was done by like a pretty famous mask maker. And it actually was up for sale for a while from this mask maker. And this Deadpool thing from the Deadpool movies. I guess maybe the set decorator was just looking for something like that. They did a parody of Princess Bride with Fred Savage as an adult and Deadpool, like Deadpool's telling the story. That devil mask they somehow ran across online and bought it, and it was part of the set decoration. And it's like 100% the same mask. It's pretty distinctive. So that was a kind of cool connection. Okay, now we'll go with clip 2. So let me stop sharing again here. And again, I didn't want to do too much video because I wasn't for sure bandwidth-wise how that would work. So there are longer versions of these. And a lot of other stuff. So yeah, Charlie, if you want to hit that second one.
What makes the second film school exponentially different, I would say, from the first film school was with the first one, it was, first of all, it was an experimental type deal, but it was also more of a competition, where we brought in 2 competing filmmakers. But with the second one, it was more of a true production process where we literally spent a period of time shooting multiple productions. The one thing that stayed the same, of course, was individuals from the community got to come in and be a part of the production. The really big difference was that rather than just having a small handful of production assistants coming in from the community,
that's me,
had upwards of 50 that could come through the program. So that was pretty exciting. They got to shadow the cinematographer, the director, they got to run the sound equipment, and at times they also got to, they got to run around and do kind of the grunt work, but they still got the hands-on experience. And
yeah, and again, I trimmed that one so it's not like super long for the presentation. So I definitely suggest if you're interested to go check out those clips. It's pretty interesting to see. And yeah, I don't know if you could hear me over the top of the video, but the guy with the pumpkin on his head, that was me, my big death scene. I played a dead body for I was like standing in for somebody who couldn't be there, and then I also played myself because the movie gets kind of meta. I don't want to give anything away in case you guys do try to watch it, but there's some I don't know. I just don't want to say anything. So yeah, as I said, this movie got released, so you can find it online. But I kind of played myself, and I am murdered, and I have a pumpkin stuck to my head. Oh, sorry, that was where I had the video embedded, so we'll ignore this. But I will say, that movie, Unscripted kind of changed my life. As a kid, I dreamed of getting involved with movies. I grew up on movies, and during my senior year of high school, I started thinking maybe I should go to film school. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and then I arrived at that idea, and I realized it was kind of an impossible dream. My parents did look into sending me to Watkins Art Institute in Nashville, which was a film school. Part of it was a film school, and it was really expensive. We just couldn't afford it, and I just kind of aimlessly went to college and took classes, ended up with a degree in e-commerce, and I'm never going to get involved with film, but I did go see movies regularly. And eventually I got hired by my library. I originally worked at the Muhlenberg County Library, and that changed my life because I developed a passion for library work, and I did IT stuff, but also did programs. And then I moved to Daviess County eventually after going a couple other places, kind of bounced around a little bit, and ultimately ended up working in movies. I was a producer on Volumes in Blood. I've been in several movies now, kind of as a background. I haven't had that many speaking roles. I did just appear in a web series out of Louisville, and I had a speaking role there, but none of this stuff would have happened if I didn't get involved with this program. And that's kind of a similar story that a lot of the patrons have that got involved with it. So this movie, I think it was about 6 months we shot with the shorts, and with it, we would come in on Saturdays. We close at 6 on Saturdays, and we would be here about 5:30 preparing stuff. There were a lot of effects, especially in Volumes of Blood, a lot of prep work, and at 6 we would go into hardcore shooting mode. Some nights we would have different crews because it was an anthology. Each anthology was kind of shot as a short film, but then it was stitched together with a through line with the story that kind of brought them all together. And there would be different crews in different parts of the library. Honestly, if we had done a reality show when we were shooting this, I feel like it would have gotten even more attention than the movie did, because there was a lot of drama. We'd have a hardcore stopping point. We had to be out of the building by, I think, 2 a.m. We went pretty late. And sometimes these effects were messy. I remember we had an exploding head effect inside of the bathroom, had some grout maybe get stained. There was some fake blood that ended up on our ceiling for a while, and our custodian kind of left it in place for a while just because he thought it was funny. And eventually it got cleaned up though. And just we were kind of freaking out with the exploding head, thinking, oh no, we're not going to be able to do the rest of this movie. So there was a lot of on-set drama. Unscripted, the film series, I feel like any library can do. And I was telling Charlie before we started that one thing I would like to see happen is to have an unscripted network where there's like a website a filmmaker could go to and upload their film for consideration to kind of tour the unscripted circuit. So one week they could be in Owensboro, one week they could be in Greenville, one week they could be in Eastern Kentucky somewhere, and so on and so forth. It would be kind of cool and good for the Kentucky independent filmmaking community to have something like that, because this became a really good rallying point for the local filmmakers. Like I said earlier, somebody could come, and when I do put together, one strategy I use when I put together these nights now, I never have people from the same area the same night. So I'll pick somebody from Louisville, pick somebody from Nashville, have them come together. They can kind of critique each other's work and say, hey, next time I shoot something, you want to be in it, you want to be cinematographer, something to that effect. So a lot of relationships like that have kind of blossomed from Unscripted, and it's something I find very rewarding to be able to support the arts community like that and bring people together. But yeah, I feel like anybody can do Unscripted if you got a screening room, even if it's small. You saw ours, it was pretty modest. But the film school, that I don't know if we'll ever be able to repeat that, just because there's so much drama, there were so many moving parts. As making a horror film, some people weren't fond of that in the public. I can understand horror is not everything, or not everybody's cup of tea, but somebody suggested, there was a letter to the editor of the paper saying, I can't believe they're doing this. Why don't they make a documentary? I was like, it's going to be hard to get some kids excited about a documentary. A horror movie, on the other hand, they'll get pretty pumped about from the get-go. I love documentaries myself, but this is just what people wanted to do, and it turned out really well. It's like a really cool commercial for the library, essentially, and it also got people into filmmaking, which was the goal. Volumes of Blood, the short films, they premiered at Unscripted. As I mentioned, there was an audience award, but we went to our fairly new convention center for the Volumes of Blood premiere, and 400 people showed up. This is PJ addressing the crowd. That was in March of 2014, I want to say. I'm somewhere in the back, but these people, probably some of them probably had never watched a horror film before in their life. They just came because it was a community thing. Everybody stuck around, and it was just kind of incredible to see this many people come to a library related event. But yeah, it was just right at 400 people. The facilities are incredible. This is where KPLA was this year. I don't know if any of you guys were able to make it out for that, but if so, this is one of the rooms, one of the larger rooms. They took the walls down. I think for the sessions there, they kind of had them divided with the fake walls, but it was opened up, and we had a projector in the middle there. Somebody that was affiliated with PJ had a screen that we borrowed, and I don't really have a shot of the screen in there, but yeah, I mean, this is beautiful. 400 people coming to see something that was created in town by people who weren't trying to get paid. They were just trying to make something cool. So as I mentioned, over the top, the guy on the floor with the pumpkin on, that was me. And I was a child of the 80s. I would often wander into bookstores and I would see magazines that I'd be terrified to pick up, Rue Morgue or Fangoria and stuff like that. I ended up being in Rue Morgue, which was one of those scary magazines. That was in a feature that they had in the back about smaller films. So that's me in that picture. And there's an article there, and a good portion of that was devoted to Volumes of Blood. So that's, international press, which was kind of awesome to see. And most of the press for this movie mentioned the unique way which it was made and mentioned us by name. So again, this is great marketing for the library. So eventually, after PJ kind of went away to start making more movies, I was tasked with putting Unscripted together. I wanted to rebrand. This is the newer logo that my boss made, and try to do things a little differently. I toned it down, eventually went one month and all that stuff that I've mentioned throughout the presentation. But as with any other program, the longer it's done, the fewer people come. And we started in 2013. And I got a little frustrated with the lower attendance, so I kind of walked away from it for a while. But last year I relaunched it and had a pretty good run. There is a lot more filmmaking going on now, and through PJ I've met a lot of people who do films. That was another reason I kind of stepped away. It got harder to find movies, but now it seems like the well has opened up again, especially now that COVID's over. People are starting to make stuff. This poster was for last year's Unscripted, and community partnerships. I've sat through a lot of presentations and things relating to the libraries and communities partnerships. That's because they're very important. The guy who made this, Chris Schweitzer, I think I did mention him earlier, Madisonville, Kentucky-based comic artist who has worked with the guy who does the Rick and Morty comics. He's did the Pirates of the Caribbean comic. He's got a lot of stuff on his own that he's done, but he's doing a lot of stuff with Kyle Starks these days. Great guy. He's on the Friends group of the library in Madisonville, so he's a very positive library person. He's done programs here before, and I've had him do flyers. And with this one, for the relaunch, I wanted to get a special new print for Unscripted. I was like, make it look like a B movie. Like a bad B movie sci-fi poster. And this is what I got back in return. That's all the guidance I gave him. So that's our building that he's drawn, and there's the tentacle monster coming out to get it. And because it's pretty ambiguous, and I'm not going to move out of August, I'm just going to have it every weekend in August for the foreseeable future. I can use this every year, so I'm getting a lot of mileage out of this. I have a big version of it up right now. So yeah, look Chris Schweitzer up if you don't know him. He's a great guy. All his books should be in your collection. He's got a lot of great stuff for kids. Just really love that guy, and he's done a lot for us. So now we're kind of almost upon Unscripted time again. I'm in the process of networking with filmmakers and putting together a series for August. Facebook is for all the bad things about Facebook, it's really great for things like this because there are a lot of local filmmaker groups out there. Indiana Filmmakers Network, that's one we've hit up quite a bit. There's a Louisville filmmaking group, and just looking around there, finding people, and Facebook groups are great for managing something like this. So once I decide to add a film, I'll add the filmmaker to a group, and then we'll say, oh, can you do this time or that time, and keep everybody kind of on the same page. The only person I'm showing outside of the area this year is Greg Sestero. He's did this horror film that I mentioned, Louisa from Once-Borough was in. So we're going to show a chunk of that. It's a feature, so we'll be going back to FaceTime. But I just try to stay, as local as possible with this from now on out. But occasionally we'll let somebody come in. So yeah, it's just that's probably the toughest part of it, is just finding films, unless you kind of know a lot of people already. But with tools like Facebook and things like that, it's not too bad. And there are sites like Film Freeway and things that are used by filmmakers to be able to, they basically upload their film and it goes to be submitted to festivals that they pick. And that's why I'm saying I would like to have a website where you could submit your film to be shown in libraries across Kentucky. That's my grand plan. Who knows if I'll get there. But that's really the end of my presentation. That's my email address. There are a few of our links. Feel free to check any of those out. There is one thing I didn't link. There's an Unscripted page on Facebook. And eventually what I want to do with that is kind of do posts throughout the year just for filmmaking tips, resources, local festivals, and things like that, just so we get a lot more activity on it throughout the year. So you can just look up Unscripted on Facebook for that. That's right before I am murdered in volumes of blood. But yeah, just look that up, follow us, email me if you have any questions, or, I think I've got some time left for a Q&A. And if I ever do get that website up, I will definitely let you guys know, because I want to get as many libraries involved with this as possible. So yeah, I guess, Charlie, if you want to open up for questions with my screen wide here, I couldn't really see if anybody was asking anything.
Sure, we haven't had any come in, but I was curious. I know you said you do it every weekend in August, so it's one movie per weekend, and you show each movie.
No, we usually do 2 movies at least, and sometimes like that one that I showed with the music video and the Batman and the Dungeons and Datings, all those are relatively short, so I had 3 in one night there. But I like to do at least 2. Like I said, which I can't remember if I said this during the presentation or before when we were chatting, but 30 minutes kind of gets a little bit much sometimes depending on the movie for showing twice. So I may cut it back to like 20 or 25 eventually. I'm just going to see how it goes this year. One thing I did fail to mention, completely unrelated to this, but I do an unscripted interview podcast now, which you can find on iTunes, and I kind of try to mimic the unscripted experience for the people who can't make it. So it's a kind of a long 30-45 minute interview with the filmmaker. I start with how they got into the game, kind of what they do for their day job, the making of whatever movie we're showing, and kind of like up until the point that movie has premiered, and talk about that and how it was received. And that's been really good and a lot of fun to do. And that's just search for Daviess County Public Library on Spotify or iTunes, and you'll be able to find those old podcasts. I haven't done one in a while, but I plan on starting that back with the next series.
Awesome.
Oh, it looks like somebody, I see something in the chat. Maybe somebody asked a question.
Oh, I was.
Oh, no. Okay.
I want to make sure everybody knew how to spell Chris's last name.
It is a tough one. And there's actually a musician out there named Chris Schweitzer too. So some of your Googles, you might want to add, I think he's Schweitzer Comics on Instagram. He's always posting some cool stuff. He redoes like movie posters as part of just kind of the stuff he does from day to day. And those are always really cool.
Awesome. Real quick, let me wrap up, and we thank the Institute of Museum and Library Services for their sponsorship of this webinar. And if y'all have questions for us at KDLA, please feel free to contact us. We're more than happy to help, and I'm going to pop a link in for a survey about today's webinar. I think it's just 4 or 5 questions, real short. If you wouldn't mind to take that, let us know what you thought, and if you have any suggestions, we are always wide open. And that's actually how this webinar came to fruition. So Wesley just said, "Hey, I can do a webinar about this. Are you interested?" And we said definitely. So we're always willing, happy to host.
I see all the thank yous in the chat. Thanks everybody. I have a Shure microphone in my hand, so I can't type back right now. But thank you for all the thank yous. So hopefully you guys liked it. And yeah, I would love to see more of this stuff happening in libraries across the state. So definitely try it out, and feel free to email me anytime if you need any help, or even if you're doing this, I would love to come to one of them. So definitely hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here today. Wesley, thank you so much. You did a great job. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. I love to hear that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Whenever everybody's ready to leave, you can just exit the tab, and this session was recorded, and I'll notify everyone when that recording is available. And if you attended live, you'll be getting a certificate of attendance as well. So thanks everybody again. Thanks, Wesley.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.